All right. Well, we will get started since it is 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. I am Andrea Clausen, and today we are going to chat all about the menstrual cycle and self-care. So I would love if you know where you're at in your menstrual cycle, if you know your day or even what phase you're in. So currently I'm on day 11, which is the follicular phase. So if you know that, go ahead and enter that into the comments and let me know where you're at in your cycle and what we have going on today, because we're going to go through each of the cycle phases. We're going to get a little dosha perspective. So I'm also an Ayurvedic wellness counselor, and so we're going to chat about doshas and what Ayurveda says about your menstrual cycle. So let's break down the menstrual cycle. The 4 phases. So we're going to start with the menstrual phase itself. Now, this is a time when we're known to, have that rest, that go inwards phase. Often it's the time where you might feel a little bit more tired. Now, sometimes I have on the flip side, people say, you know what, I'm actually really energized and I feel ready to go. So that can be one of 2 things. It can be, yes, you can honor that. Or what tends to happen is if you take that energy and you use it all up, sometimes during that ovulation phase, when we have that higher energy, when our estrogen and progesterone are a little bit higher, we sometimes feel that crash. So when we're supposed to have that energy, sometimes we feel a little bit depleted. So that's why I really like to take that menstrual phase as a time to rest. So I see that Amanda here is in the luteal phase. Awesome. So if you do know your cycle phase right now, let me know in the chat, or even the day that you're on, what cycle day. So the other phase, or the next phase after that menstrual phase, or after you're done bleeding, is the follicular phase. So that is the phase that's that spring energy. So that's the time, just as we think about spring outside, it's a little bit energetic. You might have that drive to try new things. You might be creative. You might be into, dancing and just letting loose. I like to do a lot of hip stuff and shoulder work, just trying to loosen up the body. So that's a wonderful time to kind of dive into that. Now, after the follicular phase comes that ovulation phase. And that ovulation phase is a time where we're going to really tune into the energy again. Flip side, just as I said with the menstrual cycle, that ovulation time is a lot of times when we have that energy, but then if we use it all up in the beginning of our cycle, we can feel a little bit depleted. And also if you have endometriosis, this is a time where it might be a little bit more crunchy and you might want to rest a little bit more. If you don't and you feel that energy, go ahead and use it. So this is the time to sign up for classes, go out with friends, have fun. It's a great time to communicate your needs. And then that final phase is that luteal phase. So I see Amanda is in that, and then Megan, I see you are day 7. So yes, the follicular phase, entering in that energetic phase. So that luteal phase, again, when we're tapping back into that end of it, or end of our cycle, one of my good friends calls it the crunchy phase. It's the phase where we feel tired. We feel a little bit more sharp to anger, especially if we're out of balance, and we might just feel a little off. Or you might feel a little bit more grounded. You feel more present. So again, it can show up in one of 2 ways. So let's break that down. I just want to throw on the doshas. If you are familiar with Ayurveda, let me know in the chat, and I can go a little bit more in depth about the doshas if you're not. But each cycle phase is also associated with a dosha. So that menstrual phase is actually the vata dosha. So that's why, when I talked about that energy that some of us feel, that vata dosha is at play. So you might have a little bit too much vata going on where you feel that energy. So it is important to ground. It is important to kind of settle back into the body. Then we move into the follicular phase, which is associated with the kapha dosha. So that kapha energy is the grounding. It's the earth energy. It's the water. It's the heavy feeling. And so just as the spring season is outside associated with kapha, so is that spring season or the follicular phase in our menstrual cycle. So those are a great time, again, to get moving. So the best thing you can do during that phase is movement. So getting things to not get stuck and to not get stagnant. Then that ovulation and the luteal phase are both associated with the pitta dosha. And that Pitta dosha is that fire element. It's that water element again, but it's the water that's like rushing down from a waterfall. It's not that stuck, stagnant water that can be, off the side of like a creek that's just staying there. That's more Kapha energy. So this Pitta energy during that ovulation time, we often feel that like heavy flow, that heavy push, that focused energy of that waterfall. And then during that luteal phase, we can feel that fire, the heat. I have a lot of people who tell me that they feel that fire building, especially towards the end of their cycle, right before they start to bleed. You might, be at night, you might get a little sweaty, or you might be more sweaty during your workouts. Just paying attention to that, because that might be the excess heat in your body. And doing some Pitta pacifying practices can help pacify some of that heat and that intensity. So those are a little bit about each of the phases, and kind of diving into a little bit more. We're going to go into a little bit more depth, which each practice that you can do during those phases. So I've tiered this up to not only what, since we're in the spring season, I decided to throw in some spring practices in particular for your menstrual cycle phases. So starting with that menstrual phase, the best thing you can do, I'm going to give you 2 practices for each of the phases. So the menstrual phase during the spring season, and during every season actually for this one, for yoga, if you do practice yoga, forward folds, twist, those are great to kind of help stagnate energy. And so, especially if you have any cramping, doing those forward folds, maybe it's a standing forward fold, maybe it's a seated forward fold. You can do any sort of twist. So, laying on your back, doing twist, over a bolster. I really like to incorporate the bolster, especially during that menstrual phase, to help kind of release, again, that stuck and stagnant energy. So folds, twists are great during that time, and that's about it. So we don't want to necessarily push it. My kind of mantra for this phase is rest is best. So we're not trying to do a vinyasa flow at this time. We're trying to go for light walks and, again, restorative yoga. Now, another thing that I like to kind of focus on is a breathing exercise of just focusing on releasing and letting go. So maybe you even say to yourself, you pause on that inhale, everything is lengthening. So relaxing and releasing the pelvic floor. Exhale, feeling that contraction. So with that, I figured I put in kind of a breath work practice for each phase. So I figured we could take just a minute or so to kind of focus in on that breath work. So for everyone who might be in that menstrual phase right now, this is great for you. Everyone else, this is still a practice that's going to have benefits for you. So if you can go ahead and just find a comfortable seat, maybe you close the eyes, and the palms can be flipped down, especially right now for the menstrual phase, for that grounding. And then the eyes can be closed. And then that inhale, take a nice long inhale in through the nose. Feel that pelvic floor, feel the belly relax. Exhale, feel everything contract. And just settling into your breath a couple more times here. So inhale, feel everything relax, release, open through the belly. Exhale, contract. Good, we'll do that 2 more times. And then after that second time, start to focus on what you can release. What can you let go of? Especially as we approach this new moon time that we're in as well. So on the inhale, what do you want to let go of? And then steadying out that breath. We'll take a couple more here. And then you can just bow the chin into the chest and blink those eyes back open. And that can be a practice that you do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So that can be as long as you want. And another thing I like to pair that with is journaling. So if you have anything that came up, you're like, I need to write this down so I remember, a journal practice is a great addition to that as well. Especially in that menstrual phase We want to go in. We want to see what's illuminated. And if we get quiet and if we do have that pause, we'll start to see, yeah, this is the idea. It's not the time to act on those things. It's the time to just sit on them. So that's where we maybe even in your journal, you have a nice page of a list of things that, kind of popped into your head. And then the follicular phase is the time where you're going to start to investigate those things. So transitioning now into that follicular phase. So this is the phase again with that kapha energy. And so this is the time where we want to break up stagnation. So I have a tea recipe that I will share with you. That is one of my favorites for a little springtime tea. So all what you're going to need is a half a teaspoon of turmeric. I should have told you, maybe if you have notes, maybe you want to take notes for this one. But a half a teaspoon of turmeric, half an inch of fresh ginger, 1/4 of a lemon, teaspoon of honey, and then your water. So this is a great little tea to have in the actual spring season, as well as your springtime in your follicular phase. So that's great to kind of bust up that kapha. Lemon is great for the kapha. Honey is great for the kapha. Turmeric is good for anti-inflammatory action. And ginger is awesome for digestion. So it's a nice little cup of tea that you can have in the middle of your day to start your day. If you have a little bit extra pitta, you might exchange that lemon for a lime. So limes are a little bit more cooling. Lemon's more heating in property. So that's where the lime is a little bit more cooling. Okay, so our practice for this one is Kapalabhati. Has anyone done Kapalabhati before? Anyone? You could just say yes or no in the comments. But we're going to do this practice together. So this is, again, a great breath work for that kapha energy. And you quickly inhale, exhale through the nose, and it's kind of like a churning action with your stomach. Now, this one I will demonstrate. If you have just eaten, or you are eating, or you just had maybe a big glass of water, then skip this practice for right now because it is an in, up and in, so we don't want to have anything come out. So I'm going to quick show you. Amanda says she has not. Okay, so I will kind of demo, and I do have a shirt on that hopefully you'll be able to see the stomach pumping action as well. So I'm going to quick demo before I stand up and show you, just so you can kind of see what's going on up here with me. So I like to close the eyes again, and then you're going to go in and out through the nose, so you'll kind of hear what it sounds like. So it's kind of quick in, quick out through the nose. Sometimes you need a Kleenex after this one. So standing up, you'll kind of see what I like to do. You'll stand, you can put your hands on your thighs, and then it's a pumping action with the stomach. And so it's kind of go, so you see how I'm pulling up and in, up and in. And then as I do that, I'm quickly breathing in and out through the nose. And then again, eyes can be closed to help reduce any of the 5 senses and focus internally. And you do it 30 times. So if you want to do it with me, if you haven't had anything to eat recently, now is a great time, but we'll all kind of do that together. So you'll start by taking a deep inhale in through the nose. And then we'll do a quick inhale, exhale through the nose and mouth. And then after that last one, deep exhale out through the nose, and then you can just slowly roll it on up. All right, so that one, you could do it once, or you can do it up to 5 times. So I like to do it in the springtime in particular. I do it once for my own dosha. Kapha is the least of the doshas that I have in me, so I usually only do it once. If you know your dosha and you know that you are primarily kapha, you might do that about 3 times. All right, so that is some of the follicular phase practices. Now transitioning into that ovulation phase. So this is something that I coined a few years ago. I call it the 2 p.m. check-in. So during that ovulation time, we can get ungrounded if we're not careful. And in particular, that 2 p.m. is a time, and it can be 3 o'clock. It just is whenever it fits in your day, kind of after lunch. So if you think about 2 o'clock, it can be again 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock, whatever time. But checking in with yourself. It's a pause. You put it on your phone as a timer. So don't leave this up to you're going to remember at 2 o'clock because typically we'll forget. So put it on your phone, put an alert, 2 o'clock dings, and then you just pause if you can. So that's why I said whatever time of your day this fits. You take 5-10 minutes And then you just kind of sit with yourself and ask, what do I need? What does my body need? So some days it might look like reading a book. Some days it might look like, hey, I need some breath work practice. I need to move my body. I need to walk around, and really pausing just to kind of notice and see. And in particular, during that ovulation phase, because it is that pitta phase, pitta tends to get in that like go, go, go energy, and they don't take time for that self-care. So that's why I like that pause. What does my body need? What do I need to nourish myself? So at the end of the day, I don't feel depleted. So I'm not, just reaching for a glass of wine and turning on Netflix because I've just used up all of my energy during my day and I haven't had a little bit of self-care for me. So that's where I do it in particular, especially if you are a pitta dosha. This has been really helpful for people just to kind of pause. What does my body want? What do I need? So you can kind of explore that. And if you don't know what you need, and this is also something that comes up too of like, I don't know. I like to create lists. And so I like to have a little list, like this is not my list, but you can have like a little notepad next to your desk. And maybe you just have a list of 10 different things that might feel good. So you don't have to think about it. So let's say you're just exhausted at 2:00 and you just can't think of something. You look at your list and then pull something from that list rather than having to really tune in if it's not there that day. All right, so for this one, your breathwork practice is alternate nostril breathing. So this is also one of my favorites, and it's great for balancing out the brain and the hemispheres of the brain. So we're gonna do, this can be done many, many different ways, but we're gonna do the traditional one, or you can do it visualizing if you do have a cold. So we'll take our middle finger and our index finger, and you can place them at that third eye. You're gonna plug your right nostril with your thumb. So I like to start on the left because most of us have a little bit of a vata imbalance. So we'll plug that right nostril. We'll inhale through the left, and maybe you can do it for a count of 5, 6, 7, whatever count feels good to you. So you'll inhale through that left. Plug the left with your ring finger, open your thumb, exhale out the right. And again, for a count of 5, 6, or 7, make it even. Inhale through the right. Plug the right, exhale out the left. Inhale the left. Plug the left, exhale out the right. Inhale the right. Plug the right, exhale the left. Good. I'm going to have you do this with your own breath work. If the arm gets tired, you can kind of take the other one underneath. You'll finish with one more round, and you'll finish when you exhale out the left nostril. You'll keep the eyes closed, palms can be flipped up on your lap. And then just take a few breaths with both nostrils open. And hopefully that feels a little bit more rebalanced in the body. And then when you're ready, you can open up those eyes. And again, that's a practice that can be done. I like to do that every morning, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And so that's where that arm underneath kind of helps, especially if that shoulder is getting a little heavy. And if you have a cold, instead of doing this, a nice way is just to visualize that breath coming up and that breath leaving, the breath coming up and out. So that one is a good one, again, during that ovulation time, during that pitta phase. So when that pitta needs a little cooling. All right, so coming up to that last phase, that luteal phase, kind of the crunchy phase, everyone's favorite phase that they might not enjoy as much. So there's a couple practices that I have. Kitchen sadhana is one of them, in particular, again, for this spring season. So kitchen sadhana is a practice that one of my Ayurvedic teachers taught me years ago, and it's about cleaning the kitchen. Because in this spring energy, we often feel the to-do list. Even if you are in your work life, if you have those tasks that maybe you've pushed off, the luteal phase is actually a wonderful time to get them done. They're a great time to do your checklist items because you're very in that mode of focused energy. Because again, it's that pitta focus. So that kitchen sadhana, I'm gonna grab my notes and a couple things for you guys to get started on. So this is one where you're going to kind of ask yourself a few questions. And again, you can journal this if you want, or just kind of think about this in your head. So how can I use my home to serve my evolving habits? So that's question one. And that's what we're going to think about as we're doing this kitchen sadhana, as we're cleaning up the kitchen, or even a room in your home. How can I use this space in the future to serve my evolving habits? Meaning, what do we want to fix? Is there something that you're like, yes, I've been meaning to buy this new cutting board, or I really would like to relocate where I have something to make it easier for me? And then when will I schedule a deep clean, a purge of my kitchen or your fridge, or again, a room in your home? So some of the tasks, again, I like to write these out. So writing out, what are these tasks? What do I need to do to have this clean kitchen, for example? Cleaning out the kitchen drawers, filling in a weekly meal planner, making grocery lists, cleaning the fridge, restocking kitchen staples. Maybe there's a few things where like, oh, I'm out of rice, or, I usually always have extra quinoa and I don't have any. Purge and restock your kitchen or your fridge. Again, going through your fridge. I just did this a couple weeks ago. I'm like, ooh, this expired 5 months ago and it's got mold growing around the top. There's probably things in your fridge you're like, yeah, I gotta get this cleaned. Same thing with spices. Are there any spices that are really old? I had some when I did this. The first time I did this, I had spices that were 10 years old and I was like, ooh, they are probably not good anymore. And then this is not going to be applicable right now, but if you do have a garden, harvesting, weeding your garden. So this might be the time where you're planting. So this could even be you working on, okay, if I do have a garden, what am I planting? What is it going to look like this year? And then any homemade staples. Maybe you have some things that you like to make, like, fresh salad dressings. Maybe you need to remake a few. Any sauces, any herbal teas, anything like that on hand. So those are some of the things that you kind of do. And then what else for you? What else is your staple in your kitchen or in a room to make it more you? So I had a room upstairs that I was working on making it my Zen den. And I had it on my list for a year and a half before I finally got to it. And I had all of the things I needed. I just didn't make the time and the space to actually put the room together. And so I finally made the time. I put everything together in a room and I completed the task. So again, this is a great luteal phase task because we have that energy, we have that focus, we want to finish the tasks. And then another one. So this is kind of the flip side of the luteal practice. This is one that I personally like to do as well. But practicing self-compassion, because this is a time where we get judgy, we get quick to anger. This is a time where social media might need to come off the phone, because it's a time where I have friends who run their own businesses, and they're like, I just want to quit everything. I want to burn everything down. And I'm like, where are you at in your cycle? And they're like, oh, yeah, the luteal phase. And it's always that luteal phase that can kind of give us the judgment, that anger, and all of those feelings erupt at this phase. And again, if we have excess pitta or excess fire already in our bodies, that's where it really starts to get, snappy. So that's where I like to take off social media. As soon as I start to feel that those crunchy days coming, just remove everything. How can I go in? How can I kind of reflect on what practices would feel good to me right now? And that's going to look different for everyone, depending on what that is for you, that you might be like, yeah, this is where I'm spending too much time in this phase. And I just, I'm getting comparing in a bad way, not in a positive way, not in a way that's helping me. So that is something that I would practice as well, is that self-compassion, kind of that flip side, that luteal phase that we often don't enjoy. So a breath work for this one, we're just going to make that exhale twice as long as the inhale. And so for this, you want it to be so you're not straining the breath. So inhale might be for a count of 3. Exhale might be for a count of 6. Or if that feels, okay, I can do that. Maybe it's inhale for 4, exhale for 8. And we're going to try to do that only through our nose. Now, again, the caveat here, if you feel too much heat building up into your body, that's that pitta needing to be released, you're just going to take an open mouth and get out that excess heat. All right, so we'll all kind of find your breath work now, whichever practice you want it to be, whether it be 3 or 4. So inhaling in through the nose, eyes can be closed, palms again can be flipped down. And we'll take that inhale in for your count of 3 or 4. Exhaling through the nose for a count of 6 or 8. And we're going to stay with that practice a few more rounds. Notice if you're clenching the jaw. Can you release any tension in that jaw? Notice even the shoulders are coming by the ears. Can you relax the shoulders? And again, if that heat is building, that open mouth exhale to release. We'll take one more round like that. And then gently bowing the chin in towards the chest and blinking those eyes open. All right, so those are the 4 cycle phases, kind of briefly went over them. And if anyone has any questions right now, let me know any questions that you have about any of those phases. And I'll kind of do a little wrap up about the 4 phases. So I'll give everyone a second to kind of type in any questions if you have them. And so this is a way personally that I paired not only my work life, but my workouts, my self-care practices. Everything is kind of built around my cycle now, and it just flows better. And so typically why I like to pair everything with my cycle is it's our own inner wisdom. It's our own knowledge that we have going on with our bodies. And we do notice, oh yeah, my energy fluctuates quite a bit. I do have that higher ovulation energy. That follicular phase is often a time where most people, that's that fun energy. We feel really good. And so making sure that, hey, I pair that. I put this talk today on the follicular phase because I was like, yes, this is a time where I like to talk. I like to engage. A couple days right before I bleed, I'm not feeling as like wanting to talk and share. It's more like cocoon. Let me go, lay down and in my Zen den and just cuddle up and do a yoga nidra. So there are different ways that we start to notice how our own cycle affects us. And so the more that we start to tune into it, the more that wisdom that we're going to glean from it. Now, the first place I would start if you're brand new to working with your cycle is just start tracking your cycle. So day 1 is the first day that you bleed. And then, you want it to be consistent for you. Your cycle should be consistent. So mine is usually about 28 days, usually. Now, if suddenly I'm like, ooh, all of a sudden it's a 32-day cycle, I'll know something was off that last month to make my cycle go really long. Or vice versa, if it was really short. So maybe it was like a 24-day cycle, I'll know, okay, something was off with my lifestyle to make it short. So the more you start to tune in, the more you start to notice those fluctuations. And I know, I think Amanda here in the comments had said she uses the Flow app. And that's a great way to kind of tune into it. There's many different apps that you can use. Kindara is another one that I enjoy as well. And just kind of checking in like, okay, what cycle day am I in? When is that crunchy phase for me and that luteal phase? What day does that start to show up for me? And how can I work that into my life where I maybe am able to take a couple days, not rest and get away from everything because that's just not possible for most of us. But what can I do to maybe that evening, I can maybe go to bed a little bit earlier, or I can take a couple meetings off my calendar if that's possible. All right. So no questions. Well, thank you guys all so much for coming. And my goal is to keep it around 30 minutes. So everyone come in and learn and be on with your day. So thank you guys so much. Thank you.